So let's talk about angles. Pullbacks can come in many different ways, in different shapes, in different angles, and there are definitely some pullbacks that work better than others. And that is very closely connected to the trend line theory that the steeper a trend line is, the less likely price will do something when that trend line breaks. So if a very steep trend line breaks, we will very likely just go into consolidation, and if a well-angled trend line break, we have a great trade on our hands or a higher probability trade. So take a look at this, for example. This is a classic flag. We had a drive up and then we made this channel here. This is a classic bull flag with three waves to the downside. Here, 1, 2, 3, and then a continuation to the top. So this trend line here, the angle is just perfect. This is just how we like it. A little bit flat, not too steep. And if you take the 45-degree as the highest angle for a flag or a pullback, then anything higher than 45 degrees would be a low probability trade. So this here is our 90-degree angle, and this would be roughly our 45-degree angle. And if we get a flag, this is already quite steep actually. So what we want to see is something like this, or even this, much better. Now let's take a look at a very steep pullback. This one, for example. This one is something I would never trade. I mean, yes, you can see the trend line break, but there's not a lot of follow through, and also if the trend line is so steep, usually our stops are quite high. We can't get cheap entries most of the time on these steep pullbacks, and that is not what we want, because we want a trade that works out often and we want a trade that gives us a cheap entry. Here's another great example, very nicely angled channel or pullback, and again and again. This one is a little bit steeper. And this one is also very nice. So we can see if a trend is working out like this, we can get a lot of opportunities to latch onto the trend. Yeah? And if sometimes the moves are very violent and we don't have a lot of opportunity to jump on, this, for example, is a trade I don't like at all. This would be a trade I would never take, because simply the trend line is so steep that it doesn't make any sense for me. This one is borderline, but still okay. And this one is perfect, as you can see. Yeah, and that's how you can assess whether a pullback makes sense to trade or not. This is one of the main things I look for, the angle of the trend line inside that pullback. Sometimes you can't even draw a trend line on the 5-minute time frame. If we get a perfect pullback, for example, a picture perfect pullback, something like this, without any waves inside the pullback, you can then either go down to the 1-minute time frame, or you can still try to draw it on the M5. We don't need the exact trend line, we only need the angle of that pullback. So if we go down to the M1, this would be a bear flag. Here on the M5, it's a simple pullback. The markets are always fractal. So draw your trend lines when you see a pullback, see how steep it is. The flatter the angle, the better.